I was pacing around my apartment on a Sunday afternoon, like I normally do, and I was flittering through ideas on homebrewing factions, specifically for Warhammer IPs. And something that has been bothering me probably since the start of ninth and 10th edition Warhammer, when I got back into the hobby, has been a sort of lack of homebrewed armies that I have played against. Maybe it's because of the local league I'm in. A lot of the players prefer the on the box brand of their factions, but it's sort of not demoralizing, but it is unappealing to play against the same faction over and over again. My last two games of 10th edition were against Death Guard, and I gotta say, I do not like Death Guard at all now. They are not my brand. I specifically, as a guard player, I don't like it when my faction can't shoot their average shooting stats anymore against things that are tough. But that's just a personal complaint. What are you gonna do? Uh, However, the last two games of the league I was in, the thing that bothered me the most was the color scheme. For the first time, seeing the kind of gritty brown and green, disgusting, resiliently disgusting color scheme of the Death Guard was cool at first. And then I played them again, and it was very unappealing. Um, Specifically because I know other Death Guard war bands, the Cleaved, for instance, the Silver, almost Iron Warriors esque, is a unique variation of the same faction. And look, Death Guard, they have their own appeal. And the two players was only two. However, I have seen a lot of posts, a lot of people showing me their models of the sort of name brand versions of the factions they have chosen. And I looked up online tutorials for homebrewing a faction, and I haven't seen very many. So I wanted to make a video helping players, both new and old, create their own thing, their own variation on the faction. If you're a new player to 11th, welcome. I hope this video gives you the inspiration and the drive to push for something that isn't perhaps something you don't want to make. You don't have to do what's on the box. Tau, for instance, a lot of players don't like the main Empire color scheme or the Farsight Empire, but you can make your own cadre. That's awesome. Older players that might be a little more accustomed to doing that and have the skills to create something new, but just maybe need that little push, maybe the little inspiration to create something that is your own. That is what I want this video to be. And I'm going to go over sort of my process for creating the various factions that I have created. I won't go over each one. Each faction would be way too hard to kind of go over. But I'm going to go over kind of general tactics, a sort of battle plan to doing it. And I want to make this androgynous to both fantasy, Age of Sigmar, and Warhammer factions. I'm going to stay away from other IPs because it gets a little different. It's not the same thing, and homebrew is a little bit different definition-wise to those. The first will be faction and tactics. Now wait, don't worry. I'm not going to go over every single faction and all the tactics associated with it. That'd be too much for this video, and plenty of other YouTube channels do a way better job at it than I do. However, I want to go over why this is an important first step, because deciding these things now will have a pretty decent bleed over effect for your future decisions, specifically the paint scheme and the lore building side of things. For me, I start with the tactics and then go into factions, but you can go either way. I choose tactics first because not all factions are good at everything. And if I want to play a certain way, then I'd like to limit my faction options since it can be pretty overwhelming to new players. There are several options you can choose. Combined arms is the first one that comes to my mind because I'm a filthy guard player. However, there is mechanized assault, there's heavy infantry that kind of gallop through the battlefield, taking shots at a whim. You have a lot of skirmish based fighting where plenty of small craft, small vehicles that can kind of glide through the battle, kind of pepper the enemy forces and be generally a nuisance. You have heavy transport factions. And that's sort of where it makes it easier for the faction you decide. Space Marine or Chaos can kind of do everything, but some factions specialize in others. Drukhari comes to mind, a faction that should be played more, but they specialize in transports and raiding because they're Drukhari raiders. Heavy, large transport craft that goes in the battlefield and dump a bunch of dudes and dudettes that fire insane shots and then just leave. It's great. That's awesome. Do you like bodies on the battlefield? We got bodies. We got bodies. I got so many orc bodies back here. It's awesome. Play the thing you want to play. Don't look at shiny thing and buy shiny thing. That's a new player trap. Something I wanted to say before I forget is don't be afraid to put named characters in your homebrew. There are some that might be a little strange, like the Primarch characters, but a lot of the more generic characters that might be one-to-one with another thing, feel free to just do whatever you want with them. Like even Logan Grimnar, right? I'm certain there's another Space Marine chapter out there that has wolf iconography and has a big dude on a big thing. Maybe his name is Grogrin Blimblar. Boom! New character. And you put him right into your space, not space wolves, your space canines? Sure, why not? All yours. Once you've decided what you want to play and what models you want to field in the battle, now comes the part a lot of people enjoy in this hobby, which is painting. The paint scheme you choose will probably be the most distinguishing part of your homebrew, and it will be what puts it apart of other armies. Choosing the color palette should in some way reflect what your army is going to do. That's part of why the tactics was the first part. You don't want an army that looks one way and acts another. It kind of breaks the immersion in one way or another. How Before I start though, I just want to say these are all tips. It's your homebrew at the end of the day. I want to remind you of that. If you don't like anything I've said up to this point, you can just shove it up my ass. However, if anything I said is somewhat useful to you in your hobby experience, that is amazing to me. For me, I enjoy the rule of 3. That means 1 primary, 1 secondary, and 1 tertiary color. This does not apply to every single faction. Eldar, for instance, only have 2 colors most of the time. Tau typically only have 2. 3 colors is a pretty safe bet. Any more, it gets a little sloppy. I've seen plenty of very, very well painted, well done models that have been hard to look at because there's a lot going on. Specifically for Emperor's Children, there was one guy that did a whole mural on his rhino, and it was beautiful. But everything about it was hard to look at, which I guess makes sense for Emperor's Children. Now I say it out loud. Good job. I have way more appreciation now. Anyway, Your paint scheme should be a reflection of your army's tactics or the thing it symbolizes. It will be the defining characteristic of the forces when someone else sees it on the table. And in that way, it should be taken into consideration. If a guardsman regiment is on the field of battle, they typically will not have flamboyant colors because their camouflage will be the thing that prevents a bolt round turning them to mist. However, other factions that don't really have to worry about it that much or take heavy pride in how they present themselves might think differently. Imperial Fists comes to mind, where they want to be seen because they are the banner of the Imperium. They are the wall. You see that wall, you should fear that wall. That's why they are a vibrant yellow. They wear Centurion armor and stomp through the cultists, just flattening them on the ground. Because that's badass. There are so many examples I could list off about potential paint schemes. If you have a stealth army, go grayscale. If you have a lot of beasts, then have a lot of nature vibes, flora, stuff like that. If you have a lot of assault heavy infantry, then you might want to be more flamboyant, or maybe if you have a lot of tanks, you want to go a lot of whatever. It is kind of limitless. I will say what is most important is keeping it simple. Especially if it's your first army, you don't want to start a paint scheme and it is so annoying to paint. When I started my Astra Militarum forces, I went a very arid condition. I wanted to make a Tallarn-esque army. And so I had something called the boot camp, where I would paint one color per 10 guys. I would go one after another, paint fatigues, paint fatigues, paint fatigues. And after about 50 Acadian Guardsman models, I was done. I almost quit painting because of it. It is so important to find something you actually enjoy painting because you will be doing it a lot. Another thing, feel free to take a couple models and test a paint scheme. You don't have to hit the ground running. You can easily wash the paint off with alcohol and restart. Do one model with something you think is cool and then see if you like it. There is plenty of other things you can do. Dawn of War and Space Marine 2 also have access to painters where you can test styles you want to do. Utilize them if you have those resources. Look up basic color theory. The color wheel is a very important thing that I use often to kind of contrast colors. It's too much. There's too much here to discuss. And that's cool. Are you still with me? Good. Because now is time for my favorite part. Lore. I love lore. I am autistic. I think about lore all the time. I create lore in my brain all day. It's what I do. It's something I do. I think Bricky made a brick by brick video on why boredom is important. And it's important to be bored because it allows you to think about cool stuff because your brain doesn't like being bored. For me, lore crafting has always been a part of my life. It might not be your bread and butter. This is sort of superficial in what a homebrew is. To keep it simple for what lore should be is something that you can bring to the table and allows your army to be unique. I think I said that weird. Lore building creates the enjoyment of your forces. It creates the emotional impact of your forces. I'm not talking about the fact that you're gonna be crying every single battle, but these four letters are what makes the battles battles, at least to me. The new Armageddon, I think it was Battle of Deathmire, the Deathmire Spire or whatever, was cool. I think I have a lot of opinions on Armageddon. I'm not going to get into it, but I think having narrative stuff is interesting, but you can't have it all on GW to do that. You have to build the lore of your own guys for yourself. Uh, they can't create that personal impact. You got to do it. And by building the lore, you can do that. I'm not talking going crazy. I'm not talking explaining the planet, the Fortress Monastery, the craft world, whatever. I'm not talking about naming all the notable people. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. And you don't even have to start strong. Play a battle, and if something happens in that battle, write it down. Write a bullet point. Oh, this Ogren model killed a Catan shard, and I'm gonna name him uh, Dumbo the Dumbo. And what is his achievement? He killed a Catan shard. He was the last of his 6-man unit. We're not counting the commissar because whatever. He was last of his 6-man unit, and he performed admirably. And then you kind of keep that note. And then next battle, you're like, hey, that's Dumbo the Dumbo. And you build on that. And it allows, for me at least, it makes me want to see what happens in the next game and see how the loss affects. If Dumbo dies, it's like, oh, we can write him into the analogs of history and continue onward. I think I'm rambling. I think I'm too excited. I'm way too excited about this topic. This is why I made this video. Like this right here. This four letters are why I made this video. I'm getting too excited. I'm getting too excited. All right. All right. Bring it back on track. Lore. How do you write lore? For Warhammer, it starts and ends with characters. Notable characters are what defines your homebrew. The chapter master, the farseer, the specific Tau ethereal, whoever's leading your forces, the lesser downs, whoever is notable within, they are what people want to hear about. Now, I specifically say that. I've many a time been drunk on the floor at a party explaining lore to my friends, and maybe or maybe not, they have been interested in it. But people typically like when you talk about something you enjoy. So, telling people about a thing you enjoy is kind of awesome to friends and family, unless they're jerks. Keep it simple. Start with who are their leaders. Then you can go into more complex questions like, what is the culture like? Were they raised on a planet? Are they xenophobic? Stuff like that. It's not a job. You want to have fun with it. And as you play games with your homebrewed faction, you can build more and more on it. I have a homebrewed Talon regiment called the Brass Scorpions, and I played an apocalypse game where I had a commissar unit, a commissar in a unit that all of the unit died, and he was holding the fortifications alone, and he survived for I think 2 rounds. And I wrote him into my wiki page. I forgot his name, but it basically I wrote him as MIA. So I was able to bring him back in future campaigns as sort of a now Commissar Kane-esque figure. Um, it, it I homebrewing lore for your faction, and then just having fun with it. that's sort of what makes the game a game for me. The playing aspect is a catalog for social enjoyment, and then personal enjoyment comes right after. And I think that's it. Conceptually, all the steps I went over are relatively easy to understand. There's not a lot that goes into making a homebrewed faction from scratch, except for the time it takes. Buying the models, building them, painting them, and then theory crafting them takes a lot of time. I've done this enough where it kind of comes secondhand to me, but it's understandable to not go through that process. It's rewarding though to create something that is your own and then field it and then have people talk about it and you able to talk about your current projects is cool. Is cool. I can't reiterate that. People like it when you are able to do stuff, even if it is silly Warhammer models. That's what's cool about this hobby. Uh, and That's all I gotta say. Farewell.